The 13-year exile of the Pandavas is over. Inside the dim corridors of Hastinapura, midnight approaches, and the threat of war hangs over the dynasty. Royal emissary Sanjaya has just returned from the Pandava camp. Standing before the assembly, he publicly rebuked King Dhritarashtra for his unrighteousness, but refused to deliver Yudhishthira's final peace terms until dawn. Left in the dark, the blind king is consumed by an agonizing anticipation. He cannot sleep. His mind spirals as he waits for the morning sun to reveal his empire's fate. This physical torment is a direct consequence of his own actions. The king's insomnia is the somatic manifestation of deep-seated guilt taking root. Desperate for relief, Dhritarashtra summons his half-brother and chief minister, Vidura, to his chambers, hoping for comforting words to ease his anxiety. This translated commentary of their dialogue shows Vidura offering no comfort at all. He immediately diagnoses the king's condition, stating that sleeplessness typically afflicts only 4 types of people: the weak, the unsuccessful, the lustful, and a thief plotting a crime. Vidura systematically dismantles the king's psychological defenses. He forces Dhritarashtra to confront the reality that his sleeplessness stems directly from his complicity in stealing his own nephew's rightful inheritance. This tense midnight exchange forms the Prajagara Parva, the sub-book of vigilance. It represents the final diplomatic window for Hastinapura's leadership to correct their course before committing to mutual destruction. In section 33, Vidura establishes his premise: even if unasked, one should speak truly unto him whose defeat one doth not wish. Prioritizing truth over comfort is essential. He warns that relying on sycophants creates a toxic echo chamber, while the kingdom actively burns. He then builds a psychological profile of the fool. A fool is defined by deceit, enters an assembly uninvited, speaks without being asked, and completely lacks self-awareness. Vidura holds up this profile as a mirror. Every trait aligns perfectly with the king's own son, Duryodhana. An administration propped up by fragile egos and the flattery of weak advisors rot from the inside out. The collapse happens long before the army ever takes the field. King Dhritarashtra is not ignorant of the law. He possesses a highly sophisticated intellect and actually agrees with the ethical validity of Vidura's assessment. Yet he suffers from moha, a deep obsessive attachment. His blind love for his son creates a moral paralysis, overriding his ability to govern justly. Even though he approves of the advice, he persists in keeping his son close by resigning himself to fate. He attempts to abdicate his moral responsibility by blaming destiny. Vidura rejects this displacement of agency entirely. He counters the king's fatalism with the cosmic law of causality, yato dharmas tato jaya. Where there is dharma, there is victory. Using destiny as an excuse is simply a mechanism to avoid making the difficult ethical choices required of a true leader. Morning finally arrives. Krishna enters the royal assembly, offering the absolute minimum compromise to avert a global conflict, restoring just 5 villages to the Pandavas. Vidura immediately throws his full political weight behind the proposal, urging the king to accept it as the only righteous path forward. But Dhritarashtra yields to his son's greed. Enraged by the opposition, Duryodhana erupts in the assembly, publicly insulting Vidura, dismissing the chief minister as nothing more than the son of a maid. Realizing that his lifelong counsel is completely dead to the Kuru leadership, Vidura finally drops his weapons. When an entrenched system openly punishes the very people trying to save it with the truth, it irrevocably seals its own doom. Vidura's tenure ends with a tragic realization. Profound intellect and ethical clarity are entirely powerless when decoupled from the political authority needed to enforce them. We see this final warning codified in the text, urging the king not to rush to ruin for the sake of land. Refusing to fight in a war he knows is karmically doomed, Vidura officially resigns his post and departs Hastinapura on a pilgrimage. Dhritarashtra chose a flawed loyalty to his corrupted family. Vidura chose a higher loyalty to objective Dharma. As the former minister walks away, the moral shield of righteousness leaves the city with him. Millions of soldiers will soon march to their deaths on the fields of Kurukshetra. The ancient tragedy of Hastinapura continues to play out today. We see the exact same causal sequences destroying modern corporate boardrooms and failing governments. The symptoms are identical: prioritizing egos over ethics, silencing internal dissent, and misappropriating resources for short-term gains. The physical empires built by greedy and compromised leaders will invariably crumble to dust, but the laws of Dharma and the brutal consequences of ignoring them remain absolute.